the fourth prestigious King of the Ring, Stone Cold Steve Austin, an incredible victory.
The first thing I want to be done is to get that piece of crap out of my ring. Don't just get him out of the ring, get him out of the WWF. Because I've proved, son, without a shadow of a doubt, you ain't got what it takes anymore. You sit there and you thump your Bible and you say your prayers, and it didn't get you anywhere. Talk about your Psalms, talk about John 3:16. Austin 3:16 says, I just whipped your ass.
From the studios in Mooresville, North Carolina, it's another edition of the BENGEBUSTER Show. Hello everyone, and welcome to another edition of the BENGEBUSTER Show. I know it's been a while since I have uploaded a podcast, but I've been on vacation, been recharging my batteries, but now I'm back, ready to give you guys some great information on pro wrestling. And at the top of the program, you heard what I think is one of the greatest promos ever, was when Stone Cold Steve Austin cut his famous Austin 3:16 promo there at King of the Ring. And fans, the thing about a wrestling promo, it can make or break a wrestler. But an actual wrestling promo is an interview that wrestlers use to quote, talk you into the building. Basically, a promo is short for a promotional interview. It's a dialogue or monologue used to advance a storyline or wrestler. The art of delivering such an interview in the business is known as cutting a promo. Now, listeners, I want to let you guys know that I have cut promos on a lot of people. I have cut promos in wrestling, and I've done a lot of promo cutting in my personal life when things didn't go the way I thought they should go. I'd be real quick to cut a promo on about anybody. Ask around, they'll tell you. But no, seriously, a wrestling promo is very, very important in the wrestling business. I think back to the 80s when I first got into wrestling, watching wrestling, and some of the greats like Dusty Rhodes and Ric Flair and Jimmy Valiant and Paul Jones and those kind of guys, man, they could talk you into the building. Because a lot of times you didn't see those guys wrestle on television, but they were on television each week, talking about how they're going to do this and how they're going to do that. There's been a lot of great wrestlers in this great business that have been able to cut great promos. And I just have to say, my top three favorites is without a doubt American Dream Dusty Rhodes, Ric Flair, and Steve Austin. Those three guys could just talk you into a building. As a matter of fact, Dusty Rhodes and Ric Flair, when I was a kid, they'd get on television and they wouldn't even lock up. They wouldn't do anything. If you think back to Starrcade 84, the $1 Million Challenge, they never done anything on television, but they were on there talking. And Dusty and Flair talked those people into the Greensboro Coliseum for that sold-out show. So today, on today's podcast, I'm going to be playing some of my favorite promos and commenting on them, and see what you guys think about this podcast and how important promos are in professional wrestling.
Here is the American Dream, Dusty Rhodes. And Dusty, your fans welcome you back, man.
First of all, I would like to thank the many, many fans throughout this country that wrote cards and letters to Dusty Rhodes, the American Dream, while I was down. Secondly, I want to thank Jim Crockett Promotions for waiting and taking the time, because I know how important it was. Starrcade 85 it is to the wrestling fans, it is to Jim Crockett Promotions. And Dusty Rhodes, the American Dream, with that weight, got what I wanted. Ric Flair, the world's heavyweight champion.
I don't have to say a lot more about the way I feel about Ric Flair. No respect, no honor. There is no honor among thieves in the first place. He put hard times on Dusty Rhodes and his family. You don't know what hard times are, Daddy. Hard times are when the textile workers around this country are out of work and got 4 or 5 kids and can't pay their wages, can't buy their food. Hard times are when the auto workers are out of work and they tell them go home. And hard times are when a man has worked at a job 30 years. 30 years. They give him a watch, kick him in the butt, and say, hey, a computer took your place, Daddy. That's hard time.
Man. I mean, listen to the sincerity in Dusty's voice when he was doing this promo on hard times. Now, to give you guys some history on this, some of you that may not know, what had happened, this was like 1985. Ric Flair was in the cage in Atlanta, Georgia. He was wrestling Nikita Koloff. The other Russians came in to attack Flair. Dusty Rhodes comes down the ringside, gets in the cage, chases off the Russians. And then at that moment in time, Flair turned on Dusty. Arn Anderson, Ole Anderson came in the cage, and they all three proceeded to attack Dusty and break his leg. And then, of course, that's when Dusty came back, had that special boot that he wore that supposedly was the Arn Anderson especially would go on television and talk about how it was a steel-toed boot. That Dusty shouldn't be wearing it. But man, I'll tell you what, just little things like that brought people to the matches. And, you know, looking at wrestling today on the independents and on the big time, man, that is something that is missing so much in this business. I mean, it's the stuff that I'm passionate about. You know, I love angles. I love the realisticness of it. And, you know, in 1985, 86, wrestling was at the top of its game. You know, especially the NWA, when you'd watch Dusty Rhodes and the Horsemen, you had the Rock'n'Roll Express and the Midnight Express. I mean, man, those guys could just talk you into a building, much less, you know, not counting the other stuff they would do as far as like the angle with them breaking Dusty's leg and or you know, the Horseman rubbing Ricky Morton's face in the concrete at the Greensboro Coliseum. You know, this day and time, so much of that has been lost in the wrestling business. But you know, I'm seeing now where you know, AEW is starting to kind of touch on that a little bit. And I think that people are starting to get smart and realize that you got to create that kind of stuff to, you know, get people in there and get people interested. Man, angles are the best thing, and promos are so important as far as, you know, talking people into the building. And of course, talking about promos, like I was saying earlier, Dusty and Flair were like the kings of talking people in the building, because you had Dusty, you know, he was the people's man, people's champion. He was doing everything for the people. And then of course, Ric Flair was talking about how great he was and how, you know, he lived in, you know, $1 million homes, and he spent $3,000 a night partying, and he always lived in a big house on the big side of town. And, you know, so it was great. It was great. It was great for the wrestling business, but to have those two type of characters, because it was like the common man versus the rich man. And, man, it was so good. But I mean, that Hard Times promo is my favorite of all time Dusty Rhodes promo. And Dusty had a ton. He had hundreds of thousands of promos that were very entertaining and very realistic, and, you know, it really got you it got you wanting to buy a ticket before you ever saw anything happen. I mean, you know, even like now, you know, that video or that promo was cut in 1985. But even still, when I still hear it to this day, it gives me goosebumps because it was so real, and it seemed so real. And, man, Dusty was the best, and I sure do miss the American Dream. But now I'm going to play another promo of Ric Flair's that is my favorite.
Talking to the Rolex wearing, diamond ring wearing, kiss stealing, woo, wheeling dealing, limousine riding, jet flying,
son of a gun, and I'm having a hard time holding these alligators down. Woo!
Now think about that for just a minute. That promo that Ric Flair just cut. Again, that was probably 85, 86. But hearing his voice and seeing his actions on television, you believe that. You believe that he spent more money on spilt liquor than most wrestlers made. And you know what? It was probably true. Because I know a lot of times I've heard Ric Flair say if he said something on television, he was doing it. And I believe it. But man, I'm telling you what, Ric Flair really set a precedent for a lot of people, not just wrestlers. You know, a lot of sports athletes will try to be like Ric Flair, and because Ric Flair was not only one of the greatest professional wrestlers of all times, but he was the greatest talker. I mean, he would get on television each week and tell you about his limousines and his boats and his jets and his alligator shoes and his big bank account and all the women that he had each and every night. I mean, that Ric Flair could definitely talk you into a building, because Ric Flair was a great promo. He could do promos on television each week, and not one promo ever sounded the same. Now, yes, he had his catchphrases, the limousine riding, jet flying, son of a gun, but he also would talk each and every week about where he's going to be. And, you know, some of the best promos I ever saw him perform were on the Superstation, you know, because on there that, you know, they were having to cut promos, sometimes 2 and 3 on a show. But I'm telling you, man, Ric Flair was the greatest talker of all time. I mean, that man could really, set the tone for his upcoming match, whether he was a babyface or a heel. You believed Ric Flair, and you believed everything that he said, and he was going to do it, and he would do it. Ric Flair will always will be the man. And you know, I live my life kind of vicariously through him, because you know, how awesome would it be to know that, you know, you go and you wrestle every, you know, think about their schedule they had back then. You know, they're wrestling, you know, a lot of times they're wrestling more than there were days in a year, because, you know, they'd wrestle every night of the week, and then they would wrestle twice on Saturday and twice on Sunday. But still, him be able to do that, live that lifestyle, and still be able to each week when you watched him on television, whether he was tired, sick, or hurting, or whatever, you didn't know, because he was always a consummate professional. And that's what makes Ric Flair, and made Ric Flair the greatest promo of all time and the greatest wrestler of all time. Definitely a lot of people's hero, and I know he's mine. So we're going to keep this podcast going and listen to a few more Ric Flair promos.
Sugar and spice and everything nice. You know, Tony Schiavone, we have the opportunity to sit back here in that control room as wrestlers and look at what you and I know to be the greatest wrestlers in the world come out here and compete, and then come out here and stand with you and tell the whole world what's going on in their business life and in their private life. Now, you see, I couldn't help but over here, Dusty Rhodes and Nikita Koloff. You see, I was going to be real cool today, real low-keyed. But then I heard Nikita Koloff, and I'm going to remain calm for the first part of this. I heard Nikita Koloff telling everybody what he did to me in Baltimore and Philadelphia, and how my days as World Heavyweight Champion are numbered. Well, Nikita, I'm going to make one point real clear to the listening audience right now. You see, what I'm going to do for you, my friend, is I'm going to enroll you in a class in inhalation therapy. Because you see, at about the 20-minute mark in Philadelphia, you were like all the girls at the Marriott in room 806 when JJ turned out the lights. The horsemen were all in position. We were all hollering, screaming. We were raising the roof. And all of a sudden, all the girls hollered, "Stop! We can't take anymore." That was you, Nikita. The referee heard you. I heard you. You said, Nature Boy, I can't handle it anymore. You're too much man. Now, Dusty Rhodes, let me tell you something. We all are aware of the fact that you and Springsteen are like this. You and Willie Nelson are like this. Hank Williams, David Allan Coe, all your buddies. But let me tell you something, Big Dust. Who would you rather wake up in the morning with? Willie Nelson or Deborah Shelton? You see, while you are traveling around the world in your musical bliss, the Four Horsemen are going from penthouse to penthouse to penthouse, making the whole world smile. You see, we are an equal opportunity organization. And when I get to Minneapolis, if you're 5'5", 5'8", blonde or brunette, you belong to Art Anderson because you'll be just his size. If you're 5'6", 5'7", blonde or brunette, redhead, you belong to J.J. Dillon. You see, Minneapolis is my town. And after I destroy you, Nikita Koloff, I'm going to T-Wrights and Billy's Lighthouse, and we're going to tear it down. One more point. Okay. I'm going to Los Angeles. That's right. I'm going to Los Angeles, and I'll let you all into some never to be one to run my mouth. Dusty Rhodes is a Boston Celtic fan. He's a turkey just like Larry Bird is. So Magic and Kareem and James and all the boys, Jack Nicholson, I want you on the front row because myself and one Tully Blanchard are going to take it to Dusty Rhodes and Nikita Koloff just like the Lakers did to the Boston Celtics.
Man, I tell you, Ric Flair, this is what I'm talking about, about how great a promo he is. He sits there and he compares Nikita Koloff, his stamina, to the girls that were partying with the Horsemen the night before. And then he goes on and takes a shot at Larry Bird. And, of course, everyone knows Ric Flair is a huge Lakers fan. Always has been. You know, a lot of times you see him on television wearing a Lakers hat or a Lakers sweatsuit. But again, we're right back to promos. That promo that Ric Flair we just heard, he basically told the wrestler or told the fans that him and the Horsemen, him and Tully are going to take it to Dusty and Nikita in two different towns. In those 6 minutes that promo lasted, he advertised and let the people know that they were going to be in Baltimore and they're going to be in Los Angeles. And the whole time you're hearing that, you want to buy a ticket and go see what happens, And again, on TV, they didn't fight each other, but they're on television talking about how they're going to whip the other. And that's how important a promo is in the wrestling business. Now, moving on, I'm going to let you guys hear a couple more people that I feel like are really good promos. The next one, this guy, he makes you laugh. You love him 1 minute, you hate him the next. But this guy could really, really talk you into a building.
Ric Flair, huh? The real world's heavyweight wrestling champion. Must be a little tiny, itsy world you come from with munchkins in it and basset hounds that don't bark. 'Cause you've been doing enough barking for them all. See me, I'm real plain and simple and direct. They call me Hot Rod. Everybody knows it. I don't have to say what I am, 'cause I've done it. That's the difference between you and me. You talk about it, I do it. Oh, you want to come out in the frilly robes? You're so cute. Of course, I come out in a kilt. Someone says I'm cute, and I bury my fist down their throat. You want to have a party? You want to see how tough you are? Come on down. The water's fine, but it's up to here.
He is the icon. You can hear the chant right now of Roddy Piper. I understand, Mr. Piper, as we cool things down just a little bit on a red-hot Monday night, that you have been up on a mountaintop in Oregon pontificating.
Yeah, I was a little constipated, but I'll tell you something. Louisville, I was born a Wildcat, man. Home of the Louisville Slugger. Hey, better. Hey, swing. It's gone. Holy cow. God bless Harry Carey. I have been asked to come here as a consultant.
I like that.
They say the NWO is getting out of control. They say WCW is getting out of control. I agree with you. They said, what can you do? I thought to myself, the problem seems to be, since we're in Louisville, it was with bats. So we're going to have no more bats in the WCW, and now Nitros, no more bats at all.
That's great news.
Until April the 19th, in which case what we're going to do is we're going to take a bat and we're going to pat a bat right in the middle of the ring, higher than Michael Jordan can jump. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to go and get me a partner. I'm going to go and get the Giant as a partner. The Giant...
Now, Roddy Piper was another one that gave these promos that were so entertaining. You would want to buy a ticket to come and see what he's going to do or what he's going to say. Piper was he was brilliant when it came to promos because he would say off the wall stuff, but then you think about it, it made sense. You know, Piper was just one of a kind, and I could tell you Roddy Piper stories that I've heard all night long, but I mean Piper was as Ric Flair said once, Piper was fearless. He started out wrestling. He wasn't very big at the time, and he would get beat up, and he would still keep coming back because he loved the sport. But I'm glad he didn't, because Roddy Piper gave us years of entertainment through his promos with Piper's Pit, and of course his match with Mr. T and Mr. Wonderful and Hulk Hogan at the very first WrestleMania. Piper has been involved in a lot of great angles, but he is definitely one of the my top 5 favorite promos in professional wrestling. Let's move it on to our next one.
Tony Schiavone, Ric Flair's out here running his mouth. You're a little man in a big man's world. And me, an animal, don't acknowledge anybody under 230 pounds, little man. Now, just in a short time, Charlotte, we got Tully Blanchard, Ole and Arn Anderson, 3 of the 4 horsemen. And we're gonna make horse hockey out of the horsemen. Is that right, big man? You know something, Tony Schiavone? Ric Flair's out here being so proud. I would never be proud coming out here with a girl that's bigger than I am. How do you like that, Flair? Sooner or later, Flair, you and the 4 horsemen are gonna pay for what you did to us on TV. We don't care if it's Green Bay, Minneapolis, Daytona, anywhere in the world. Los Angeles, New York, it don't matter. We ain't gonna rest till we put you in your place, along as the same way we put the Koloffs in their place. And Tony Schiavone, this is the motor that runs the machine.
Tony, you don't have to talk anymore. You know that they're ready. Charlotte, it's just a matter of a couple minutes away. We're coming after you, 3 of the 4 horsemen. You're going down, Charlotte.
Quick off of that win, Hawk Hannibal and Precious Paul Ellery.
Hey, Tony Schiavone! The heat's on high! The water's not boiling yet! It's simmering!
But when it gets done boiling, someone ain't gonna be in this country no more. We're gonna be in this country. We're not going anywhere. But when it finally does boil, you can be sure of one thing, that the Russians are no longer gonna be in this country, because we're the ones that are gonna kick them out. You know something, Tony Schiavone? I hope you were watching that Nikita Koloff. That would have sent you all the way back to Moscow. We're gonna get you, we're gonna kick your butt. And one thing, we're from this stinking country. When you lose, it's gonna be the contract. You're going back to stinking Moscow.
You know, Tony Schiavone, I heard the rock and roll out here, and it sounds like the Midnight Express is a wanted team. Well, they're not only wanted by the rock and roll, they're wanted by the Legion of Doom, because there's a lot of money involved in those titles, Midnight Express. And after all, there are victories that cost more than defeat, and your victory over the rock and roll may just cost you a match with the Legion of Doom. In the lay world, it's called an anomaly. In the Legion of Doom's world, it's called despair on your part.
Back!
Man, the Road Warriors could really cut a promo. And the cool thing about the Road Warriors, whenever they would do a promo, if you go back and watch a lot of their promos, usually Animal would start, Hawk would talk, and then Precious Paul would tie in to what both of them were talking about. They gave really good promos as well. But not only that, but the Road Warriors were just awesome to see. You know, if you think back, they're really like one of the first wrestlers to be like bodybuilders and be massive and look like wrestlers look today. They definitely set the tone for what we see today in pro wrestling. The Road Warriors, a phenomenal team. And you know, on this podcast, I could go on and play several promos from the Road Warriors or Legion of Doom, as they were later known by. But promos are so important in professional wrestling, and you know, there's some people who can go out there and cut a promo, and you're like, this guy's, you know, what did he just say? And then you hear guys like the Road Warriors and Dusty Rhodes and Ric Flair and Steve Austin and the Midnight Express with Jim Cornette and the Rock and Roll Express, Jimmy Valiant. Those guys they could talk you into a building, and it was just they were the kings at it. They were the best at it. And of course, promos will also make a wrestler, as we all know with Stone Cold Steve Austin, as you heard at the top of the program, as he cut his famous Austin 316 promo, which just built his character and has made it take off just in that quick little 2-minute promo. It made him become a huge star that he was destined to be. And as you know, when he was in WCW, he was kind of held back because he had the idea for Steve Austin there, but they didn't have the idea or the space there for him. But once he got to WWE and he shot the idea to Vince McMahon, and when they done this promo, the Stone Cold Steve Austin character just took off, you know, like a rocket ship, and became, in my opinion, I believe, probably the best wrestling character of all time. Certainly and definitely the one character that sold the most merchandise. You know, think about this for a minute. Up until Stone Cold Steve Austin, Hulk Hogan sold the most merchandise. But then when Stone Cold Steve Austin came out, he actually surpassed Hulk Hogan, and that is a feat in itself, because as you all know, in the 80s, there was Hulk Hogan stuff everywhere, and for Steve Austin to outsell Hulk Hogan, that's definitely really impressive. And again, that came from his ability to cut a really good promo. And so now we're going to go and listen to a couple of Steve Austin promos, and then we'll be back to discuss those.
You know, a couple of weeks ago, when Eric Bischoff told his secretary to tell her secretary to leave a message on my answering machine for me to call Eric Bischoff, and then I called Eric Bischoff, and he proceeded to fire me over the phone, I thought a big cloud was lifted off the career of Steve Austin. Because gone were the days where I'd go up to someone and say, hey, what about me and Sting? We got this big thing going. How about the cage? And someone says, no, baby, that's for somebody else. We're just going to keep you right where you're at right now. Well, then I said, well, how about me and Savage, man? I got this great idea, man. He comes in, he's got the Slim Jim deal. Well, hell, I got... No, Steve, that's for somebody else, baby. Then you go, I've got this great idea I can do it with Hulk Hogan. I'm going to be the Steve-O-Maniac, and we're going to take this thing all the way because Hulk Hogan, Hulkamania was the biggest thing to ever come down to wrestling's pike. And they say, no, that's not for you, brother. You can't do that. We're going to keep you right where you are. I said, how about me and Brian get back together? The Hollywood Blondes, it was the best tag team to come along in 10 years. And they say, no, Steve, we need you in a singles role, man. We need you to do this. We're going to put the U.S. title on you, and then we're going to take you here, and then you're the #1 contender, so then you get this world title shot. Well, all that never happened. So there I am, floundering along. There's nothing going my way because the politics in WCW kept the biggest potential superstar in wrestling on the damn ground. What are you supposed to do? On one hand, they're paying you a bunch of money. They're paying me a bunch of money. Well, on this hand, they're telling me, hey, go out there and give Bagwell a hell of a match. Go out there with an 18-year-old German kid. Give him 7 good minutes. Let the people see what he can do. They say you are what you eat. In WCW, they didn't feed me nothing but garbage. So I let myself become garbage. I became complacent with everything that they said. As long as Big Ted kept sending in the checks, maybe I wasn't happy with what was going on, but I became complacent. Then they send me to Japan, the big injury. Bischoff delivers a shot heard around the damn world. Steve Austin's out of the high-paying job. All of a sudden, the phone starts ringing off the hook. It's ECW. It's the WWF. It's All Japan. It's New Japan. And all Steve Austin's got to do is make a decision. Todd Gordon, whether he mortgaged his house 1 time, 2 times, maybe 3 times, came up with the right figure for Steve Austin to make a decision. I strolled into the ECW arena. It's the biggest piece of crap I've ever seen. I broke in a building called the Sportatorium in Dallas, Texas, home of the world-famous Von Erichs. Anybody that was anybody stepped foot in the Dallas Sportatorium. For the last 2 years, all you've heard about anywhere in wrestling is the famous ECW arena. Debut night, I roll in. You've got the Sandman. You've got the Raven. You got the Pit Bulls. You got Stevie Richards. You got the Public Enemy. You got the Gangsters. You got Mikey Whipwreck, whatever the hell his name is. You got a bunch of damn misfits running around thinking that they can actually wrestle. All I've seen in ECW is a bunch of violent crap. And that's exactly what I'll call it, because that's what it is. Steve Austin is here to wrestle. It's what I do best. It's what I do better than anybody in the world. Dean Malenko, Eddie Guerrero, they got the big send-off. Tears were in everybody's eyes. It was a big deal. All Steve Austin got was a good swift kick in the ass as Bischoff hung up the phone and left me high and dry. There's no Hogans here. There's no Flairs here. There's not a Dusty Rhodes. And there damn sure isn't an Eric Bischoff here. There's no one that can hold back Steve Austin now. Stunning? Tossed it out the window. Never was meant to be. ECW is going to find out firsthand what Steve Austin can do. And I'm going to show everybody here exactly what a true superstar is supposed to do. What a true superstar is supposed to be. Because no one here can hold me back. Not Todd Gordon. Not Hulk Hogan. Not Eric Bischoff. Nobody. I'm going to be the superstar that I always knew that I could be. Because there's no one in ECW that can stop me.
Man, the realism in that promo that he cut while he was in between WCW and WWE. And of course, this was before he became Stone Cold Steve Austin. But if you listen to that promo, Stone Cold Steve Austin was in that promo. And that was the in my opinion, the beginning of the Stone Cold Steve Austin era. He hadn't started calling himself Stone Cold, but he was being the Stone Cold character when he was pretty much doing what they call a shoot promo. Basically, he got everything off of his chest of what he'd been feeling for so long from being fired at WCW because of an injury. And then, of course, he went on to become Stone Cold Steve Austin in the WWE and become the biggest character in pro wrestling history.
Here from the Rattlesnake now.
Testing 1, 2.
Huh?
We test this damn thing, make sure it's working, because I'm not sure I understand some of the things that are coming out of it. First of all, let me cover Survivor Series. Going into this match is a triple threat. Stone Cold, The Rock, and Triple H. Triple H, you sit there and call yourself the game this, the game that. Hey, that's a bunch of BS, because if I think of games, I think of tiddlywinks. And Jesus Christ, son, when you talk about the WWF title, that ain't no game to Stone Cold.
Uh-oh. No, it's not.
Rock, you come out here singing your little nursery rhymes with the eyebrows jacked up on your forehead, and you say that you're gonna tie a rattlesnake in a knot and stick it straight up my ass. Well, oh, Stone Cold, don't play that crap.
That's going to be a hellacious match. You're not kidding.
Come out here with your little poor man's Elvis imitation, singing little songs. Son, you can sit there and talk all the crap you want in the middle of this ring, but I dare you, I double dog dare you to look Stone Cold in the eyes that close and say all that garbage to me, because I don't think you can, because I think you're running scared. Punk.
Man.
As far as badass Billy Gunn goes, someone said, hey, Stone Cold, do you got a match? I said, oh, hell yeah, I got a match. My foot in Billy Gunn's ass. So hit his damn music so he can bring his little carcass to the ring.
Man, Stone Cold could talk you into the building as well. And, of course, I wasn't touching on some of his great stuff, which is all the promos he cut with Vince McMahon and how that feud took off from all his promos too. Of course, a lot of their conflict in the ring were actually during promos. Of course, Stone Cold tortured McMahon, going to the hospital and giving him stunners and pouring concrete into his prized Corvette and lots of other things that he'd done. But they all revolved around promos. And I want to do this podcast tonight and let everyone know exactly how important promos are in the wrestling business. It's a key factor to drawing your gates, getting people in the building, and not only that, but getting a wrestler over and getting introducing the people to what that wrestler is, whether he's going to be a good guy or a bad guy, baby face or heel. But promos are very, very important in the wrestling business. And like I said earlier at the beginning of the podcast, promos are not just talking about an upcoming event, but cutting a promo on someone. And I love doing that. It's really fun. But promos are some of the greatest things in pro wrestling. So I hope that everyone can listen to this podcast and leave with a whole new aspect of how important promos are. And if you are a current wrestler, definitely go back and watch some Dusty Rhodes, Ric Flair, Horseman, NWA promos from the 80s, and step up your game. Listening to that kind of stuff can really help you perfecting your promo, because remember, those are very important. And I just want to thank everyone for listening to my podcast. Make sure you tune in each and every week. We're available on iTunes, iHeartRadio, Spotify, Google Play, and YouTube. Check us out. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for joining us for another edition of the BengeBuster Show. Make sure you like us on our Facebook page and tune in each and every week as we will be uploading new shows and new episodes of the BengeBuster Show.